Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. Well, here we are. October's over and the voice in my head is gone. Well, one of them anyway. So, what's on the roster for this week? Well, it's Minority Report, but not the movie. The 1956 short story that's not really connected to the movie at all. But, since this is Minority Report, and I screw around with making different intro for the show when I'm bored, maybe we could use this one?
I met you on a Thursday, Friday took you home. Well, Saturday I'm begging you, baby, just leave me alone. You're turning me upside down, pull me to the ground when you shake me, shake me. I'm giving you what you need and I'm begging, please don't break me, love.
Now for the differences from the movie. In the story, Anderton, a 50-year-old balding out-of-shape cop who created pre-crime, unlike in the movie where he was Tom Cruise. Also, the precogs can see other crimes in the story, while in the movie they can only see murders. And also, the characters are somewhat different. In my humble opinion, and I never say this, the movie is way better. The movie's a lot more cerebral than this, and the movie makes you think. And, hey, Tom Cruise. Anyway, on to the story. The story begins with John Anderton meeting with Ed Whitwer, who is a complete delight and super nice to Anderton. Whitwer's going to be Anderton's assistant until he retires, at which he'll take over Pre-Crime. Pre-Crime is the program that Anderton made that uses 3 mentally challenged people to predict crimes before they happen. You know, murders, rapes, that type of stuff. Anderton plans to stick around Pre-Crime until he dies, when Whitwer understands completely. The story wastes no time introducing the concept that the criminals haven't committed a crime yet, but they will. Anderton's describing Pre-Crime to Whitwer when he sees a card that has the crime on it with an interesting name. His own. He pockets it and starts to get paranoid that someone on the inside is framing him to get out so the government can take over Pre-Crime. And that Whitwer and Anderton's wife Lisa are seeing each other. Yeah, he's almost as paranoid as Jonathan Archer. The Vulcans are taking over Pre-Crime, and they're holding us back! After Whitwer leaves, Anderton gives his wife the card and she's shocked. He says that he's going to leave to head to the Centurion colonies, and that she isn't coming with him. He says it has to be a setup because he has no intention of killing Whitwer. He doesn't like him, but not enough to kill him. But his wife shows him that it's not Whitwer's name on the card. It's a guy named Leopold Kaplan. He figures this is better. He's never met the guy. Anderton descends into madness and is taken by a man in a brown overcoat to a limo. Wow. Apparently that looker guy from the Pokemon games is getting into kidnapping. The man who sent the limo is Kaplan, who wants to get Anderton arrested to gain funding for the government and get Pre-Crime discredited. And with him going to the Pre-Crime jail, those people that he got arrested that didn't commit a crime are going to remember him. He is then confronted by a man who tells him that it's a frame-up, but not by the government, by his wife. The man gives him a set of ID papers and enough money to keep him afloat. He tells him to stay low for the next week and not to leave Earth, as they have all the intergalactic transports under heavy watch. He is now Ernest Temple, similar to how movie Anderton took the eyes of another person to hide himself from the cops. He makes sure he can fit the description of the man, but is worried that the brainwave pattern and fingerprints, being a match, wouldn't be. He catches a bus and goes to a hotel. He turns the radio on, and they're playing the police bulletin that's asking the public to help catch him. He finds it amazing that the public is so engrossed, since there hasn't been a crime since the advent of Pre-Crime, and no one has escaped before. Then again, no one else is the inventor of the damn thing. And now we get to the title, saying that there is a majority report, which is from 2 of the cogs, and then the minority report.
Who said it? Who said it?
Which is one that might be different, and prove innocence. Anderton conspires to find the report so we can see it. He finds a phone booth and calls one of his friends on the inside. His friend asks why he's calling, and he says that he needs to use the equipment. His friend lets him use it, and he finds the third precog with the Minority Report. It shows that because he was informed that he would murder the man, he doesn't murder the man because he changed his mind. But that report was superseded by the two that said he was going to murder Kaplan. Anderton realizes all he has to do now is show the report to Witwer and he'd be safe. But then he goes back to being a nut job and goes all, "Witwer knew all along! He's out for my job!" His wife shows up and he leaves with her to evade Witwer, and him and his wife have an existential discussion that perhaps all the criminals, if told that they were going to commit a murder, would change their mind. Anderton claims that he's the only difference from the formula, because he's the only one that had access to seeing them. He plans to take the report to Kaplan, who would protect him if he was proven not a murderer. Lisa makes sure that Anderton knows that Witwer was just doing his job, and that Anderton would have done the same thing in his shoes. Lisa tries to convince him that he's a nut job and that Witwer isn't out to get him. Of course, our hero doesn't believe her because he's a psycho. She pulls a gun and he swerves the ship, and the man from before is in the back and disarms her. The man, Fleming, takes the tape saying that Kaplan and Witwer would melt it down to keep Anderton as a criminal. But as he's about to murder Lisa, Anderton bashes his skull in. He Skypes Witwer and says he's going to give himself up, but to stop all access to the cogs. Anderton returns, and him and Witwer have a conversation about how the army has a plant in pre-crime. He realizes Witwer isn't out to get his job finally, and they team up. Anderton and Witwer are friends, and they're planning to stop Kaplan. He watches the tapes from all three precogs. In the discarded path, Anderton is given an ultimatum: disband pre-crime, or face the army. He goes to the Senate to get help, but they decide to create a police state. Anderton then shoots Kaplan to stop his reign. Then he watches the second one, expecting it to be the same, but it's not. And then they figure out the plan. Kaplan wants to discredit pre-crime and get it shut down by showing the Minority Report, and that they may have been arresting innocent men and women for years. Anderton plans to go shoot Kaplan and has Witwer agree to bump down life imprisonment to exile. He gets there after Kaplan states that Anderton is innocent, and Anderton shoots him. He's taken in and sent to the inter-system transport to be sent to the colonies. Before he goes, he warns Witwer that the same thing could happen to him one day. And that was Minority Report. I liked it, and although I prefer the movie adaptation, this is a pretty good story. Philip K. Dick is a fantastic author, and I recommend this to everyone. Now, I'm going to go watch the movie, and next week, it's the end of an era, and you can finally panic. His wife shows up and he leaves with her to evade Witwer, and him and his wife have an extensive... His wife shows up and he leaves with her to evade Witwer, and him and his wife